Hey, welcome to Horns Up. It's me, Animesh.
And I'm Peter.
And joining us once again is Temple of Void and True to Promise. It's not just one member. So today we have Alex, Jason, and Mike. Welcome, guys. As just like last time, just so our listeners can identify everyone's voices, can I have a quick round of introductions? We'll go in alphabetical order just to make it easy.
My name's Alex.
No, I'm going to go by. This is Alex. So the guy with the funny accent, that's me.
This is Jason. I forgot my alphabet. This is Jason.
This is Mike. This is what I sound like. I'm the nasally guy.
So this is what he sounds like when he's not when he's talking normally.
Yeah, when I'm not growling or doing death metal vocals.
Yeah, so as you guys might have known, or if you figured it out, if you haven't, let me just break it down. Alex is on guitars, Jason Pierce is on drums, and Mike Ardodi is on vocals. Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming back to Horns Up. Peter, you said you had the perfect first question, so what is it?
Yeah, so prior to we hitting this record button, right, we were talking about working titles. And first of all, you released your fourth album, Summoning the Slayer, a couple of weeks ago. So was it always going to be Summoning the Slayer? And what was the working title while you guys were working on the album?
Oh, we had like a whole list, Alex, and everybody kind of contributed to.
Yeah, you know what? You're talking about sort of digital legacies and history and, all the different tools that we use to capture things. While we're talking, I might be able to find like the list of all like the working titles. But before you hit record, we were joking a bit more about the song titles because those are a bit more ridiculous than we came up with serious ideas for the album titles. The songs, when you're in the practice room, you come up with something that is inspirational and makes you remember what that song is. Jason probably still has that whole board, right? Like in your basement.
Yeah, I have a whole board of how each riff was broken down. Like there'd be a certain section that'd say smashing quick or smashing sand to relate to how we're going to go. Or, it's pretty funny. Like we had one song called Big Cock.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
in relation to the big riff, a big cock.
But I'm trying to remember. But yeah, it was always like Slowly We Rot in Paradise or something like that. Because it's here's this this riff we were thinking like this obituary and this one mixed with this Paradise Lost, just kitschy titles.
Oh yeah, Slowly We Rot in Paradise. Yeah, Big Cock came from Relapse because someone on
the big
who it was.
Riffs.
Yeah, he called it. He said big cock riffs. That was his description. And we were like, that needs to go on the sticker, like someone from Relapse talking about their own Relapse band with big cock riffs.
Yeah, I'm imagining that as a new sticker that comes pasted onto each LP or pasted onto each CD. This album features big cock riffs or parental advisory. Big cock riffs.
Oh, that would be great. Oh, that could be a shirt. Parental advisory, big cock riffs.
There we are again. Yep, just like last time. Suggesting shirts.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I do have some of the names for the album. Holy shit, there's so many. It's insane how many we have. But I remember one of the ones that was making the top list. Mike, you came up with Introvore.
Yeah.
That was one that that you had.
That was the one. Yeah, that was my big one that I thought I threw in the hat.
Infinite Death, Flames of Desolation, Soul Destroyer, Horrific Emptiness, Enter the Beyond, Fires of Chaos, Fires of Emptiness, Dread Citadel, Into the Citadel of Dread, Depths of Desolation. I could go on and on. There's like pages of
Word salad.
But those titles kind of describe the feeling of the album perfectly.
Yeah.
Right? Because let's talk about the music. Why the fuck not, right? That's what we're here for. Off the bat, the album left me feeling super, super, super melancholic. I know it's not an album that I can play in the background as such while doing other things because it needs attention. It's super immersive. And I'm guessing it'll become, or it already is starting to become a go-to when I need to be just alone with my thoughts. Have you heard of similar reactions?
Right now I feel like it's kind of early to tell, but I feel like you really kind of nailed it, man. That's, I mean, that's really all you can ask for it is, you know, we wanted a record that was an immersive listen. Like so much listening, I feel like I might go, just stop me from going on a rant here, but I feel like so much music listening is very passive. Like it's very like, okay, I've got this playlist that was cultivated by this person. That's all similar thing. You know, I mean, it's like it's background music. You know, you want an album that's going to actually draw someone away from that, like you just described. So it's actually a very high compliment. Thank you. Nailed it very perfectly. At least how I would, in my mind's eye, like the album to be perceived, you know?
That's how I think of Neurosis. Like to me, Neurosis is a very active listen, and it's when I want to be alone and focus and really be immersed and go into some other land. And at first I was like, oh, this sounds kind of depressive, Animesh, because you're talking about like, you know, how depressing it is, and like I'm like, man, I don't want you to be alone with it for too long, you know, or you might you know, you have some self-harm thoughts or something. But then making the Neurosis comparison, it's the same thing. I mean, they're so in your own head, you know, and it's definitely not feel good music, yet there's a release in sharing that emotion, you know, with an album. And Immersion was, every record we're trying to up the ante on the cohesion between the album art, the music, the storytelling, the whole experience. So like Mike said, it's a huge compliment when people pick up on that and they feel that it's an immersive record, because that's what our goal is. That's what we're trying to do every time, is to bring you into a world, you know, and we do what we can to achieve that, you know, and make it more immersive from record to record. I don't know where we go from here though, honestly. I don't know what tactics we have to pull.
Well, I think we're taking a little time off too, you know, like you said, just kind of let the album release, give it some time to breathe, sort of take in the feedback, take in everything that's going on, to like enjoy the actual perks of having a label like Relapse give it a push, you know, that sort of thing. So it's like we've got time to kind of figure out what's going to inspire us and things like that. Like Alex, you've got, you know, some music you're doing too, you know, so it's like everybody's kind of wrapping up some stuff. I think it's we worked hard between the two albums because they were so similarly close that it's like it's nice to probably just take a little break and get re-inspired, figure out where you want to take it, because like you said, Alex, where do you go from here, you know?
I mean, I feel like we've pulled different levers, you know, like with the artwork being 4 panels, with connecting all the songs with the cave ambiance, with having like the synth and the sound design on everything. So it was like we ticked every box. I don't know what other boxes we have other than trying to tick the same boxes again, but do it, you know, better, you know, or different. I'm not sure what else.
It's pretty clear to anyone who's listening to this that you guys have given it your all, right? And that shows. Which then leads me to ask: Is Summoning the Slayer the best or the most on target description or example of what Temple of Void should ideally sound like, or is it just a product of the time that you recorded it in?
I'm curious to hear everybody
More
on
the latter
position. Like, Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel that this record was a representation of where we were at that point of writing it, all of us together in the room, Alex and Don doing their thing. I feel like it's maybe the state of mind that we were all in came out in the writing process and the song structure. You know, I don't feel that like this record is like, this is now the TOV sound. I feel like this is just a progression of who we are as artists, musicians, and who knows where it goes from here. But I think it's definitely a mindset of where we were at that time, in my opinion.
I agree, but I think it's a mixture of both, because every time we do a record, we learn from the prior record and we take what works and we move it forward, and then we try and do it better. So I think there's a lot of things that we learned and brought forth, and each successive record is built on the shoulders of the prior ones. So I think if I was going to let anyone hear TOV for the first time, I would definitely say start with Summoning the Slayer. To me, it is the most complete picture, but we couldn't have gotten there without the other three, and I love all of them equally, and whatever, but I definitely think there's areas of deficiencies, quote unquote, in the other ones that we were able to rectify and improve upon to get to this one. And yeah, I don't know, you can see that. I mean, we could bore people and talk about, like, I guess what they were and how we laddered up. But I definitely think the production, without a doubt, like, people will like the muddier, more lo-fi production of the prior albums, but that isn't intentional. That's like, if the means that we can afford and what we have access to. If we could have had like Arthur Risk from day one, we would have. If we could have been flying around to a different studio and had like a bigger budget from the get-go, we would have went for the sound like from the day one. So I definitely really like where we went with the production.
That's a good way to put it. I feel like I also too, like, we wouldn't be where we would be like without kind of doing things the way that we did with what we did. Like, I actually really fondly liked recording at Mount Doom and all that. I feel like I cut my teeth there too, because I think at that point, like when we cut Of Terror and the Supernatural, that was the most probably in-depth as far as like recording, because it's like everything else that I had done prior, it was like, friends' basements or going into the studio for like one day and cutting something, like real quick. Like, this was like a multiple effort, like multiple day, or at least doing, we did it like over a weekend. I want to say I don't even know how long it took to record the first one, but it's like, everything just kind of built up. I felt like by the time we were with Arthur to work with him as like an actual like transactional producer and stuff like that, I think you guys definitely like were there and like mechanized and regimented, and I mean, you went there as pros and you tracked as pros, and he worked his magic getting it set up, and it's like basically you want to get it to the point where you just hit record and it's good to go. I think all that kind of built up too.
So since we're talking production, right? Personally, I enjoyed, and I like how Alex kind of put it, the cave kind of sound. Like, I was calling it like the atmospheric sound, because if you kind of pay close attention and if you're listening to it just like only and doing nothing else, you can kind of see that kind of seep all across the album, right? Like all the way from Behind the Eye all the way till even Dissolution, honestly, right? It's all there in there. And I want to understand, because you're talking about working with a producer, was that like a very conscious, deliberate thing that you'll kind of wanted to add? And what were the references that you were kind of using for this sound?
Okay, I'll bore you a bit. So we've had synth from the first album, and it came up in a few songs. When we got to album number 2, we had it in there, but I felt like there was more we could do with it. So when we got to album 3, I thought, let's put synth on every track, because we've got it, it's working, but it's not loud enough in the mix. Like, there's still a refinement. There's something in there we can improve upon it. So the improvement was like, let's put it on every single track. So that was sort of like a mandate. But instead of having Omar, who does the synth on every track, I brought in Meredith, who's someone I used to work with, and she does sound design. So we did some songs with Omar, some with Meredith. She did sound design, and then I did one track. And we got the mix just right. As far as I was concerned, I thought the mix was like right on the money for the world it was. And when I heard synth or sound design in every track, to me, it felt very cinematic, and it added this layer of atmosphere, because so many people use synth, but we were using a sound designer too, like someone who works on commercials and movies. And the sort of goal with her was to treat this like it was like you're scoring a movie, like you're scoring a sequence, which is very different than scoring like um like a soundtrack. It's like this is a completely different approach. So I think that's pretty unique to have a sound designer working on an album instead of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got to album 4, it was like, well, it worked great. Now it's fundamental to our sound. What else can we do? And I think Brent might have had the idea about the cave ambience, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Brent came up with that idea. And so Meredith worked on doing the cave ambience. And then when we gave it to Arthur, I think he was the one that actually put it throughout the entire record. I don't think we had the message. I can't remember. I don't think we had the vision of stitching all the songs together at first. But then when he did it, I was like, oh shit, that's great. Like that was awesome. And it might have been like his idea, it might have been a miscommunication, but it was awesome. And I was super into it. So that became, like you said, you're kind of sailing down the river if you close your eyes and listen to or if you look at the artwork and just listen in headphones or whatever to the music, you can almost picture yourself on that boat or getting out of the boat and walking through all 4 panels of that artwork and hearing the drips and the noises. And so that's kind of how it all came together, was learning from prior albums, working with people outside of music, so to speak, and approaching it like cinema instead of approaching it like multimedia, rather than approaching it just like, guitar riffs and drum beats and stuff.
Okay. Let's talk song structures, because this is very interesting. You've got repeating choruses on Death Touch. You've got songs which don't have a chorus at all. Give us a perspective on the songwriting process. When and why does a song need a chorus? And how do you guys end up structuring out stuff, saying that, okay, now let's repeat this X amount of times, or this song needs it to be repeated X amount of times, etc.?
Who wants to go first? Because I'll talk about everything. So you guys jump in first.
I will say, from perspective of the vocalist in this, I mean, I'm usually kind of the last stop when it comes to like me doing my, like, adding my touch to things. And so it's like when we were kind of going through the songs, and as they're written, they're generally shared and whatnot. And the song that became Death Touch, it was like, I could tell from very early on, I was like, oh, this one's going to be probably the big one. Like, I can already tell. And it was just the way that the song was structured. It was very traditionally structured. And I was like, I could throw a chorus in here. Like, I could technically make this in here. And that was kind of the intent behind it, is it's like, okay, well, we'll do it. We'll see how this goes. It's like go with it. This is what my gut instinct. I did a lot of what my gut instinct was, like, writing wise with it. But yeah, like that one, I felt like, okay, I'm going to definitely make this and give it traditional song structure, and to give it a good, try and write a catchy chorus and give it something and make it hopefully the lyrically relatable, and things like that. So from my perspective on it, like, that felt it demanded. Other stuff you could get in there and it's like, okay, well, there's not the repeating parts, and this lends more like, this will make me feel more like a story where I'm going to be kind of narrating something versus like having like a repeated traditional song structure. It's really relying on like kind of what they're vibing. So it's like, I don't know, I feel like something about Death Touch, when you guys were writing it worked. It kind of expanded on like Leave the Light Behind, like the things that we touched in there, and actually took it in, I don't know, I think even further.
Yeah, I think we have no rules. I think would be the best way, is we're not prescriptive that certain songs should have chorus and verse and intros and outros. Like, there's a bunch of elements that you can use in a song: intros, outros, bridges, choruses, pre-choruses. You don't have to use them all the time or have any kind of formula. And that's what keeps our songwriting organic and fresh, and not trying to, you're not writing for anybody other than yourself. It allows us to write some songs that are more pop oriented as far as structure goes, and then other ones that kind of ladder off of them, like the riffs kind of ladder together and take you somewhere, and don't have as many repeating parts. I think the ultimate test is that it should be memorable, and like there are plenty of songs out there that don't have traditional pop sensibilities that are still memorable, you know. I mean, could you imagine if like Bohemian Rhapsody, they're like, oh, there's not enough like repeating parts in this song, you know, like you know, they did, who cares, right? I mean, they wrote that song, it made sense, and it's in movements, you know. And I think some of our songs have more of a movement approach to it, like a beginning,
I agree,
and end, you know, and that's fine, or just two halves or something. But as long as it flows and it's catchy.
So couple of things. First, I didn't expect a Queen reference to drop in this interview, but the second thing is with Dead Touch, right? For me, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you felt this, Animesh, but it gave me that whole like kind of Paradise Lost vibe. You know, that entire thing, just the repeating chorus and stuff like that. Was that a reference at all? Did that cross your mind?
For sure.
Was that the Big Cock Paradise Lost?
No,
that was
one that you haven't heard actually. That was that's going on an upcoming split that we can't talk about just yet.
Ooh, okay.
I recorded an extra
and that's
song.
probably like one of my favorite songs too. I love that song.
Is this the same split we've been discussing since our last interview? Because I feel that we've heard this one.
Who knows? Well, we did Revel in Flesh, so that came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so probably not. This is, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Cool. Okay. So, here's a set of questions for each one of you, right? And let's start off with Jason.
No.
How much can you lift, bro?
I think
a lot.
That'll be part of our outtakes. But what's something that you've learned from the entire Summoning the Slayer recording process?
Oh, you know, nothing that I learned that I know. I love playing music with these guys. I love what we produce. I love being in this band, number one. But what did I learn? You know, that's a very, very good question, man. That's a very, very good question. I don't know. I have to really ponder that for a minute. Can you come back to me?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to hear.
Okay, so let's go to Alex then. So the last time you actually told us that you guys write fast riffs and then slow them down. Is that a technique you used this time also?
I'll have to let me think back to all the riffs on this. I definitely know we did that on The World That Was. I'm trying to think about these particular. Oh yeah, I think actually Behind the Eye. Honestly, like that opening riff was a lot faster when I initially wrote it. It was like you know, like it was definitely like a faster one, and we had to bring that down to get it to like TOV speed, because it's just kind of fun, sort of gymnastically, to kind of move your fingers like that and kind of get into a groove. It was fun to play fast. But I'd have to really like, nothing's jumping out to me as another one that I wrote that was really fast and then got slowed down. But I know we did on The World That Was.
Okay, cool. Okay. Jason, we'll come to you. We'll give you a little bit more time.
I love it. Thank you.
All right, Mike. Personally, I love the vocals throughout, man. That spacey, reverb heavy vibe, it really shines through. What's the thought behind it? And talk to us about like the production tips or tricks that helped make that kind of an idea into reality. Because it must have been quite a strain on you, I'm guessing, certain parts.
Well, that's kind of the thing is, okay, it's been a learning process over the years, because this is really the first band, I feel like I've like kind of gone into it prior with other things, but it's the first time that I've actually done vocals really in a band, like seriously in a band. I kind of stepped up to do vocals in my first band, but that was just kind of out of like necessity at the time. But like to come in here and do things solely as a vocalist, especially doing a different kind of vocal style, something that I've never really done before. And it was a learning process for me, but I kind of threw myself out of my comfort zone to do it. And I feel like listening to the demo versus listening to the last album, I really do feel like Arthur captured exactly what I wanted. Like he knew, and it was the tips and tricks, like there are none. It literally, like I came in and I tracked like a dry run, I think of Death Touch, the first one. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. Like I remember you guys saying that you had there was like a pretty uniform reaction when like when the first vocal part hit when you were in the sound booth.
What about the mics though? Like you could maybe you did have a learning about mics on the European tour, right?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely learned.
You could talk about that.
So yeah, mic wise on it, I mean, I basically know more mics from a recording standpoint and things like that. As far as like mics, you know, it's SM58. Why not? I had a Sennheiser one that I brought on tour with me, and they you know, I was like, oh, if anything happens to it or whatever, you know. But the guy Are, who was our like tour manager, he was kind of going through, and it's like, well, no, you get the SM58, like it definitely made a difference between the two. Like you could tell performing with it, because some nights like they had that, I brought that, like just if I wanted, you know, to use my own. But eventually we had gotten one SM58 beta, and it made a world of difference. Because I know, like, I assume it's kind of the same dynamic as like an SM7B or whatever, how that's very ideal for like recording vocals. It's kind of the same thing. Like something about it I don't really know as far as from like the actual like science behind the sound itself, you know, the timbre of it, if you will. But like there was something about it where it was like, wow, this made things significantly easier. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm sold on what I'm going to go and buy and actually use as my, like, you know, the mic I bring to shows. So I guess in that regard, that worked. But as far as the actual recording, I think I wrote down in like, you know, with a band thing, I pulled out my, you know, my memo pad, and I like wrote on my notepad what the mics were I think that we recorded, because I remember it just right off the bat, as soon as we hit that first part, like over the song, like you know, just set where it was at with the scratch recording, it sounded amazing. So it was like, you know, there was not a whole lot of tips and tricks. It's whatever Arthur had it dialed in before I even walked up and took my first breath. Yeah, it was easy.
Okay, cool. Jason, had enough time?
I will say what I have learned though is I come from a punk rock drumming style. So fast, hard, you know, I've learned over the years playing in this band to be very methodic, you know, and kind of caveman, but having a groove throughout everything that I do, what these guys are laying down. You know, and I feel like, you know, what I've learned is to have my meter be on point no matter what, and not always trying to rush the song and just having a groove to it. I think that's what I've learned, you know, about myself as a drummer in this band, if that's kind of where you're going at with the question. But I mean, that's what I've learned. And in terms of the record, I was just so insanely comfortable at that studio with Arthur. It was the most comfortable experience ever. I just sat behind those drums. Everything sounded insanely amazing in those headphones. I even said to him, I go, this is the greatest headphone mix I've ever experienced in my life, like ever. And I think it just made me playing as a drummer for the record that much better. You know,
it sounds like Arthur was the uncredited member of sorts who really helped summoning the Slayer shine, right?
You know,
I think he's all over the album.
Yeah.
We gave him credit.
Yeah, of course.
We got there that night, and we set my drums up that night. But really, we set my drums up that night, and he's like, you know, let's just record. And we just got there, and it was like, all right, this is crazy. Okay, let's see what happens.
Good producer.
Yeah, I picked up so that rare. He got a good ear. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Okay, cool. Let's change tracks. We have to talk about Dissolution. What's it about? And I mean, no disrespect, but why is it on the album?
Um,
No disrespect, but WTF?
No disrespect. All right, fine. All right.
I mean, okay, can I add one thing before we get into this, right? I mean,
no, it's fine.
If you grew up in like the 2000s listening to like a lot of those black metal where literally first track intro, last track outro, right? This kind of took me back. So like if you had this in a way, and I'm pretty sure this probably would have been discussed, if you had this at the first track, then it makes sense. But then when you have it as the last track, you're just like, wait, and especially with digital files, right? You're like, did I get a wrong file mixed up or something like that?
It would not make sense at the beginning. That's why you're not in TOV, because we would not put that. We would not open up the record.
That was the first track.
Yeah, because no. But Mike, take it away.
I thought it fit at the end. In fact, it was kind of one of those things where, okay, with me personally too, with Temple of Void, with every album, I want to try and at least do something that I've never done previously. Like, it's the same thing with me getting into doing Temple of Void as a vocalist. Like, you throw yourself out of your comfort zone, you try something different, and you just kind of throw it to the universe and see where it goes, because it's one of the things where it's like, okay, it's my art and I'm going to do it. And if you don't like it, I mean, I did it for you. I hope you appreciate it, but like, I ultimately did it for myself and what I wanted. As far as lyrically, I mean, the whole album is kind of designed to be up to your own interpretation. Like, it's very much an album kind of centered around the human condition. And I feel like some interviews kind of take it and run with it. Like, I wouldn't say that it is conceptually has anything to do with like the pandemic, but I think the pandemic was kind of an inescapable thing in a lot of our lives. And I think it made it very hard for a lot of people. So like, there was this sort of like misanthropic air to just life, especially at that point, which is during when the lyrics were all written for this. So I don't know, it just kind of the concepts of things. I'm trying to think how I actually kind of got to the concept of where it was, but like what it eventually became. But it was like, you know, you're doing, you know, this is a time where you're isolated, like you're here with your own thoughts. And it was just sort of, I think that was kind of the prompt that started Behind the Eye, because Behind the Eye was actually the first song I think I actually wrote lyrics for. And I wasn't quite sure what the concept was at that point. But as it kind of traveled through, it's like I wanted to kind of touch on different things that like, we wanted to make an immersive album, and I think a part of making the immersive album is making it relatable. And there was, I had seen somewhere where it's like, you know, death metal is like rooted in its inaccessibility. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. And like genres, anything, it changes over time. And, you know, I would rather be on the team that tries to push a genre than the, you know, something that checks boxes, like Alex said, or plays it safe, you know, and that's kind of why it's on the album, if that explains. And I always, you know, if somebody brings it up, you know, they listened. So, you know, it was like Graven Desires that was on there. I was like, well, somebody brings it up, I know they actually listened to the album. They're not like, you know, lying to me or nothing. But yeah, no, it was really just kind of one of the,
though. Yeah, it was really intentional to put it at the end.
Yeah,
it was this come down, you know, like Animesh said, like this was a depressive. People have called it claustrophobic. Mike just said misanthropic. And it's so claustrophobic and so heavy and so dense that it's this breath. It's like it's like you're holding your breath for this whole album. And then finally at the end, you get to exhale. You get to like come down from everything. There's maybe a ray of hope. And it lets you breathe. And sort of, to me, it's this great way of just almost like a fade out, you know, like some sort of resolution. It's the final act. And when we're talking about like overall, when learning from prior albums, I think this is the best song sequencing that we've ever done. It's the one that I'm most happy with as far as like flow. So I love that Mike wrote it, and Mike, it was your idea to put it at the end. And I love personally how it came out.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting you say final act, because to me it felt more like an epilogue.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of how I put it with them. I was like, we haven't done that. Like, okay, we did an intro on Lords of Death. We did different things as far as like with me doing some sort of like acoustic thing or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, what's something that we haven't done? And it's like, well, we haven't closed an album with it. And I did a lot of acoustic writing just in general, like during the pandemic. And so like kind of going through the pieces, this was the one that felt distinctly the most that could be Temple of Void. And so I like took the ideas that I had placed together with that, and then I kind of completed it in the mindset of that's going to be on this album. And I kind of took some things because like Alex and Don and Jason too have taken a lot of liberties of like incorporating their outside influence, your Z-axis, kind of comparison. And it's like taking all these outside influences and combining it with the Death and Doom. And it was like, well, this is kind of my opportunity because I actually like a lot. I'm a big fan of like 70s prog music, like heavy 70s rock. I know Alex is too. I like psychedelic music and a lot of that stuff. And so I kind of let a lot of the influences shine through on that. I like playing acoustic guitar a lot. So naturally, I like a lot of singer-songwriter music and stuff. I'm selective about the things I liked, but I tried to take the elements of that sort of thing and put them together into, this single song for it. And as far as the lyrics go, I mean, really isn't anything that I can kind of talk about. It's like, but it's generalizations and trying to like find something where like, if you read it, it's like, well, I can understand. I mean, the song itself is like, it's about fear and kind of missing opportunities by being too afraid or like, like looking back and being too stubborn to kind of change things because you're afraid to like just like shed your ego or afraid to, and that's stuff that I think that anybody who's ever like felt lost in a relationship or like lost a friendship or lost, like death in that way, death of some sort of connection in your life, and things like that is, I think that's something that I think is relatable. And like Alex says, it kind of ends lyrically almost on a like, maybe things will be different. Maybe things will whatever. So in some ways, it's like that come down from just the oppressive heaviness of the rest of the record. And
oppressive heaviness.
Wow.
Okay.
It's not for everybody. And if you don't like it, you can just cut the album off after Transcending Horror and pretend it doesn't exist. You don't even have to hit skip.
Okay.
All right. So, you know what? We've talked quite a bit about Summoning the Slayer. Let's play a track from the album. Which one should we play and why?
Let's hear some of that oppressive heaviness.
Yeah.
Or you guys can just say, hey, let's play Dissolution and we'll do that.
Yeah. The most oppressive, I think, is Engulfed. To me, that's the most hopeless and spiraling into falling into a well, if you will, of despair. What do you guys think?
I agree. I remember watching Mike do the vocals for that, and we were all, every single one of us were like hands up, like holy fucking shit. Sorry, I had to say it, but we were just like, oh my God. Like that's it. Like that's it. There's nothing else can be done. Can't go any.
And then if you're listening in headphones, Arthur pans that kind of back and forth between the two sides, and that was a neat little kind of trick that he threw in that I like. To me, it's the most oppressive. So.
Yeah, the descending riff, like the really, the main recognizable riff in it, that becomes technically, it's kind of the chorus, like that. It just begged for something. And I remember working lyrics with it when we were like jamming it at practice and just going down, down, because it was a descending riff and it was like the most, obviously the first thing, like a lot of lyrical prompts on that made it because it was like, just kind of going with your gut on it as far as like what I felt with jamming the song and just kind of building around that. And it's like, okay, well, that ended up being lyrically, it it's a song about spiraling downward, like either shutting down or closing yourself off, withdrawing, whether it's like whether it's an addiction or whether it's, there's a lot of different ways that you do it. But I mean, ultimately you don't solve your problems. Like, they don't go away while I mean, you may close off and you may like find yourself, because it says in exquisite darkness. It's like, it's almost like a positive, where it's like you engulf yourself in it. You shy away from your problems, but they're still there, like at the end of the day, or like when you come back,
These
All right.
podcasts and interviews are great because as Temple of Void, we learn about what our own songs are about, because this is where we hear from Mike more than anything else. And like, that was a really, like, I didn't know that like the actual descending riff, inspired the descent, like lyrically and stuff like that. So it's cool for, I think, me and Jason to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Alex. I feel like I'm very creatively private sometimes. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's cool. It's interesting. It's fun to do this, to bring this kind of stuff out.
Okay, here it is. Here is Engulfed.
Small coming
Alrighty, so I've seen mixed reviews about summoning. Some people seem to love the vibe as its natural evolution. Some people seem to think it's similar to Metallica's Black. I've read that comparison. It's talking about basically being a bit more rounded off the edges, more accessible. And that opinion has a lot of connotations attached. What have the reviews got right? And are there opinions that don't resonate with you guys?
Overwhelmingly, it's positive, like without a doubt. I because I mean, we all, I'm sure, read just about everything that we can get our hands on. The thing that has came up a few times is some people think that Dissolution should have been the second last track. No one, Peter, said it should be the opening track. But but there you go. People have different opinions. So some people like totally understood and they get it and they understand, they come down and think it's perfect where it is. Other people have said it should have been the second last. Some people have said it doesn't fit on the album. So it's been like the most contentious, like no one said they didn't like it, actually, from what I've gathered. I think some people said it would have been great to hear a whole album like that from Mike, which I would wholeheartedly agree. I'd love to hear a Mike Rodoti solo. So that's the one thing that people have talked about. But I mean, I guess who cares? So I guess how do you say that they've got it right or wrong? Because it's like subjective opinion. So it's all kind of, I mean, who cares that we're not here to argue with them? Like, we know what our intent is, and we executed in our intent, and put it out there. But people have picked up a lot on the immersion that we're going for, and like the feelings, because it's all about atmosphere. It's about how it makes somebody feel, and that's really resonated well with a lot of people. Some people have talked about the production, and they understand that like it's better and that's good, Yeah. And like we had said at the beginning, if we could have had better production from day one, we would have. So people kind of like, they understand that and they appreciate it. Some people, they prefer their stuff to sound more lo-fi. So they want everything to sound like, they don't want bands to change, and they want it to sound like, Mount Doom, and wish everything sounded like Lords of Death. They can just listen to Lords of Death if that's what they want, like, so. But overall, it's positive. What do you guys think? I mean, Mike, Jason, you read all the reviews too.
Yeah. I don't know. As far as I mean, I guess, if you want to look at it as Temple of Void travel to work with a producer, I mean, I guess you could compare that to Metallica records with Bob Rock on a much smaller scale, Milo goes to Morrisound. I don't know, like, what I guess, I mean, we worked with a producer, like, clearly there's going to be I mean, I guess some degree of gloss on it, but I wouldn't like compare it to, a band that attempted and created, like one of the most like popularized, like, crossing over like metal band into, pop music territory, I mean, we're still an underground death metal band, man. Like, we play Death Doom, but I mean, whatever. The criticism's valid. I mean, it's definitely a much more produced record than anything that we've previously done. But I think the songs on it are still very much rooted in Death Doom. They're very influenced, especially on this one more than anything. I think just because the writing was feeling it, more influenced. Everybody says the Peacefield 3. And it's like, okay, well, that's been an influence since the beginning. I mean, we've always championed that, so there, it is what it is. And I think we all strived. I mean, this is our one shot. Like, we signed a Relapse. We got a substantial label backing us. Like, we wanted to write a good album. Like, if we didn't want to write something that people could enjoy, I mean, we're not expecting to blow up or get huge or I mean, do whatever. I think it's more in the intent of like putting out an album that means something to us and hopefully means something to others.
I think a point of clarity too is when we talk about producer, we wrote all the songs and recorded them exactly how we wrote them. Like, we didn't work with Arthur from like a song structure perspective. So he's producing the record sonically, he had zero input on any arrangement. Like we always come in, do that ourselves, and we just kind of hit record. He just hit record and made it more high fidelity than we've ever had the opportunity to record. Unlike Bob Rock.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I genuinely think Bob Rock always just wanted to be in Metallica.
The fifth member.
Yeah.
Well, also, I feel like it was just like one review, honestly, that mentioned like the Metallica thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone's like comparing anything that I do to the Black Album, I don't take that as an offense. I mean, the Black. I mean, it's not like that's not a bad comparison. But if the intent was like to get big or something, then are you kidding? Have you heard Mike's cavernous death growls all over this? Have you heard the riffs? Like, just because it's a bit more high fidelity, it's hardly like radio worthy, you know? Like,
but it's better.
We're not playing like funk beats. I mean, everything is still plodding and slow and then like Hex Curse. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
that song just is in your face from point A to point B.
Well, that's a good point, Jason. I think that song especially is probably the most death metal song that we've done today. And Behind the Eye is actually too. So I think we have two of like probably our most like straightforward, could easily, you know, kind of Lords of Death vibes on this album. It's not completely absent from the influence or anything like that.
I read a review, I think Jason sent today, that said it was our most death metal record. So, you know, like people hear different things, you know, it's all in the ear of the beholder, I guess, you know, like what they pick up.
Or because it's now higher fidelity produced, the kind of headphones they have or what they're listening to.
Yeah.
Or it's a Relapse release. I don't know what the take is. It's
yeah.
I don't know.
But you kind of walked into this, and why don't you take this one, Jason? Because I want to talk about the whole relapse factor, right? I mean, I guess that was the big move, because I love how you guys left us on a teaser the last time saying that, oh, there's some big news. So I'm pretty sure, confirm for me, were the talks with Relapse on the last time while we were having our chat?
Alex.
I mean,
well, it was definitely all Relapse, though.
Correct? I would say so. It was around World That Was. So.
Yeah. We were pretty much done with the World That Was, and then we're like, hey, Relapse, we're done with our obligations. Do you want the next one? You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
We feel very, very fortunate. So lucky. They're amazing, amazing people. Really, truly. From everyone in that organization, they really very supportive, and they're very into what we're doing, and they're into everything that they're doing. It's a great label, and that's not talking because we're on the label. I mean, it's just a great label.
Okay.
Truly.
Can you spill any beans on how the shift to the label has affected the business of the band, be it in terms of reach and audience, PR, sales, even merchandise, or something of that sort?
Definitely the reach is a lot bigger, and that was the whole point of going to Relapse, is definitely like when they drop something on their YouTube channel, you know, it has a much bigger reach than we could ever get on our own or on Shadow Kingdom. Anything they do, just a wider audience distribution should hopefully be better for people, you know, in Europe and Asia Pacific, you know, just kind of outside of, you know, North America. Hopefully they can get our records in. They made more of them. You know, there's like 6 different colors, you know, of the new record. So they pressed more, assuming that they were going to sell more. Let's hope they don't regret the decision to press records.
Or someone's left with like the special vinyl with no one bought.
Yeah.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
No, I think like the sales numbers would have really impressed Shadow Kingdom. And they're just going to grow, you know, like from here because of the exposure. And I really like that they have someone who works with us on PR opportunities in Europe. We got someone who works on like PR in North America, someone who does social media, someone who does video. You know, they have all these specialized roles and people looking out for you versus, you know, Shadow Kingdom was like a much smaller operation. It was Tim, and then he had a couple hired guns, you know, that would kind of rotate, you know, for different aspects. Whereas Relapse, they have a full-time staff, you know, so we feel like we have a whole team around us instead of having to do so much ourselves. And it's been great. And I echo everything that Jason said. They're into us for being Temple of Void. They don't want to change us. They just want to give us a bigger platform. We didn't move there for financial reasons. We turned down a larger offer, honestly, financially. But we wanted to go with a label that respected us for who we were and could just give us like a bigger opportunity, you know. But it's not all about dollars and cents, because they want us to be a TOV and put their machinery behind us, and that's great. It enabled us to go to Philadelphia to record with Arthur. That's all we could really ask for, and they made a much bigger budget video. When I say bigger budget, it's not big by any stretch of the imagination, but bigger, because we used to do, you know, videos in Jason's basement for like $500, you know, so, or my backyard, you know, for like $500. So, yeah.
It's a great video though.
we take that $500 and we do a lot with the $500, but they give us
we got a
bit
jar
more than that.
Yeah, jar when it reaches 500, it's got music video taped on it.
Yeah.
We reach our budget. Well, time to do another video.
And this time we got to go into Relapse's jar. We didn't have to go into our own jar.
Yeah,
so
exactly. It's a much bigger jar.
Yeah, and they had an extra zero on the end, so it was easier for us.
That's how the golf got like written. We actually were trying to scrape the bottom of that jar.
I love the jar comparison, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about live, because like while you're talking all about this, I was just trying to also think about like experiencing this music live, and what's happening on that front. When do you guys have shows planned in support of the album release?
No,
nothing yet. Nothing.
We did Europe. Is that a conscious decision?
14 shows in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, we did
14. Yeah, 14 cities in 14 days. You know, so that was a big deal. Our first time in Europe. But after that, like we had to do so much work to get ready for that. Then do it. Come back. We needed a breather. You know, so we're taking a breath. We don't feel beholden to anybody or anything. We'll do things when, quote unquote, we damn well feel like it, you know? So when we're ready, we'll do it and it'll be genuine, you know? It would be nice to do some record release show, some sort of support for it, but I don't know. We all have other shit going on, like families, jobs, you know, just taking a breather after all that. And we'll get back to it.
Well, big selling. I was going to say on a personal level, as far as like our interperson, you know, personnel dynamics and stuff. One of the things I always liked about Temple of Void was everybody in the band had their things going and had actually their stuff together, so to speak. So like, and everybody was respectful of each other's jobs and other things like that. And so we may not be able to do things in a lot of the capacity that like other bands can, where they have like a safety net where they can actually like tour, or they could, you know, or they have a life that they've built to where they can, you know, do that sort of thing. Everybody in the band is kind of on the same page about that, but we all, you know, have at least enough freedom that we can kind of coordinate things and do smaller runs or do festivals or do things like that. So it works well, you know, as far as for that goes. And you know, we were able to pull off, you know, the European thing and do 14 dates. I mean, we had, you know, and it worked out well for us to be able to do that in the capacity that we are. And personally, like, I'm okay with that. Like, if I can maintain this capacity, I mean, you'd love to see things grow, but I'm just saying, even where it's at, like, there's a contentness that I have where it's like, well, I could at least pull a 2-week tour in Europe. I could do this, I could do that. So we can still do stuff to support it. And if we don't, if like things are going on, we have, you know, somebody's got a job thing or something like that, or we're laying low, we respect each other for that, and we're going to find ways that we are going to make it work, whether we take that time to write or we take that, do whatever. Everything's very organized and it's very purposeful, and that's one of the things I do actually like about jamming with Jason and Alex and Brent and Don, and it works out well in that way.
Okay. I feel like we're finally at a point where we can take our foot off the gas. I know it sounds like weird because you just put out an album. You think you should put your pedal to the metal, like go gung ho. But I feel like we're at a place where we're established enough where it's nice that we can take a break, kind of just do what we need to do, kind of off camera, so to speak, and then come back re-energized, ready to rock, and not worry about external pressure like you got to play this or you need to stay in people's on the radar and support here and support there. We got to do things at our own pace to make it manageable for us as individuals.
That's why Relapse rules, because they don't require that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that was a big.
That
was a big decision thing for me. I remember.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, I want to play some shows. I want to play this weekend. Just kidding.
All right. So to kind of wind down, there are a few questions I had to kind of get off. Right? I actually remember last time, Alex, you brought up the term energetic doom, and I'm realizing we've brought quite a few of these terms today, but that's the context you use about playing live. Coming off your European tour, is that still right adjective, and do you see the Songs of Summoning actually fitting that tag?
Yeah, in Europe we didn't get to play any of the Summoning the Slayer records because we toured in April and it came out in June, and because it was our first time in Europe, we wanted to make sure we did a third from the first album, a third from the second album, and a third from the third album, so that people who liked everything, they got to hear everything, and they weren't annoyed that we only did one cut off of OTATs or something, so it was equal representation. And after the second show, I thought my body was going to fall apart and just completely give up on me. We had never as a band, I think, done more than 3 shows in a row, and here we were doing 14 in a row. I was concerned how Mike's voice was going to handle, because, you've never sang like 2 weeks in a row. I didn't realize that I was going to fall apart like just a pile of trash, because normally when we play, we're so physical.
It's
Jason
so physical.
Crushes, like I'm headbanging so much. It's just so physical, but you can give 110%, leave it all on stage, and then you go home and you go do something else like the next day.
Yeah.
You don't have to just destroy yourself night after night. So Justin, who played bass on the tour, he and I were both like, oh, we're not going to last. We're going to be like cripples by the time we're done with this. So we had to figure out how to temper, our and pace ourselves so that we didn't burn out, on song 3 and then like kind of phone it in. So it was like, how do we keep it consistently, going off without just fucking destroying your neck and turning into a ball of knotted distress and broken bones. I had a limp for 10 days or something after a second show. I wrapping my foot up. We had a nurse and a doctor on tour, and Jason was taking care of my limp. Yeah.
Wow.
So here's the deal, though. We had to have a discussion, though, too, because after what was it, Alex?
Third show.
The third show, Alex had to sit me down. He's like, all right, so listen. You gotta play slower. We haven't played in so long, and I was just, and like the first couple shows, like the people were so like, it was full on close, lots of people. It was just fucking bombastic and fun. And I knew I was playing faster. And Alex is like, yo, these riffs are so complicated. And Mike's playing guitar and he's trying to sing. And yeah, so I had to cut back a little bit. And then after that happened, I think it was just.
Once he did, it was awesome. He talked about his on. Yeah, like it's not that the first 3 shows weren't good. We hadn't played since December 2018. We'd never played with Mike playing guitar. We'd never played with Justin on bass. And then
new bass player.
Up. We'd never been in Europe. So we played these shows. And the first
Germany.
3, I was like, dude, you're on speed or something. This is insane. Like, this is so fast. It was very energetic. but then it turns into mush, like those riffs, like the like it still goes off the rails. But yeah, from 4 onwards, he was right in the pocket, and we slowed it down to the right tempo. So
yeah.
Okay.
And this, again, quick reaction or raise of hands. A couple of non-TOB questions here is, who makes the Warhammer models?
I do the Facebook page, so I do all the Warhammer posts. Yeah. I don't know. It's the one thing that like I try and engage with fans on outside of just like buy our shit, like it's got to be other things. So I can't help but bring in some of my personal stuff because I know it resonates with people and people enjoy nerding out about comics or anything that's adjacent, that to what we do. And Warhammer definitely has like an overlap. So when I started posting some of that stuff, people dig it. We talk about stuff. A guy just today posted his Necron tattoo that he had. So I like that kind of engagement with fans outside of like being so honestly Temple of Void centric. It's nice to go behind the veil, right, and kind of see who we are as people. So
yeah, I found that really cool. So that's why I had to ask. And final question: favorite albums of the year so far? Can we go quickly? Alphabetic order, maybe again.
Oh, you don't want to know what I'm listening to.
No, it's okay.
You know what? You don't want to know what he's listening to.
Oh, okay. 2 people
Alex.
saying that. Why?
What did he pick up I want to know what he picked up in Europe now.
Mike, tell him what he said the other day. You want me to read the text?
Okay, I mean the last song that I listened to was Belinda Carlisle, "Heaven on Earth," like heaven is a place on earth.
Okay, that's a classic.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. My favorite band that I've got into this year is Dark Blue. They didn't come out with a new record this year, but I just got into them this year, and I think Dark Blue, Start of the World, is absolutely awesome. It's like sort of post-punk type of vibe, kind of gothy post-punk thing, and I absolutely love that record. I would say the best thing that came out this year so far is the Liam Gallagher album. So that's actually a 2022 release. Yeah. So I don't know. You asked me about death metal. I don't know.
No,
Sorry.
we were just asking you what your favorite album of the year was. Doesn't have to be death metal.
Yeah, I think it's Liam Gallagher's new record.
Okay. Who wants to go next?
I'm mostly, honestly, at this point, newer music and whatnot. It's kind of stuff that I put out with my friends on my own record label. So a lot of that is like my friends' bands and things like that. It may not be like extreme metal or anything like that, but I have friends that play in a band called Locust Point. We just put their CD out, Michigan Drag. It's their second album. If you like, like Tres Hombres, ZZ Top, and Husker Du, and I don't know, like Thunder and Lightning, Thin Lizzy, and you throw that in a blender, you might get, something similar, I guess. But yeah, like that. Another thing that we put out that I really feel strongly about is one of the other guys in Dystopian Dogs, Victor, who's the main guy. I would have to say out of the 3 of us that do it, him and his brother, who I was in a band with them at some point back then, but they got back together with band of typical people, our friends from around here, but they have like a power metal, just like heavy speed metal band called Prelude to Ruin that put out a EP called Ronin Ex Mortis. People that want to rave about like Megaton Sword and like that kind of stuff on this. I would say it's like, if you like that stuff, I would rather listen to this stuff. Not saying anything bad about that, but I think that this is a lot cooler, a lot faster, the guitar playing is magnificent, and they're my friends and they kick ass and they like great shit. I can vouch for them because that's why they're my friends. And yeah, I would say those are the two big things that I've really enjoyed. I liked them so much that we collectively put them out. We did a Finnish band called Terror Cross as well. I recommend checking that out.
Okay. Jason?
Well, I'm old, so I like everything old. So I haven't really heard much new,
That's not true. Man. You send me some like newer post-punk stuff, and
I like this band called Plosives. I'm digging that. I dig that. I like this band. I'm looking at my what I've downloaded recently, Annihilation Time. I've been listening to that. I did check out this band I've never heard of called Plague God.
Okay.
They're on Relapse, and they had a video that was just insanely disturbing to me. So I got that record and listened to that. But other than that, man, the new Kendrick Lamar is really good. I like that. What else? Gorophilia. Listen to that record. Yes, make sure you get that.
Lovely.
And what's that?
No, I just said lovely. I love the fact that we're just doing these, to borrow the banger term, shout outs. Yeah.
Well, I have a more sinister reason for doing this, but that's post recording.
We can cue them in. We're approaching that time of the year, I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, what he's referring to and what listeners would already know is, yes, we're approaching the half-year point. 6 months of the year will be going by, and that means it's time for Horns Up to do its annual, whatever. What do we call it? The best of the year so far. Yeah.
I don't think I've gotten any death metal this year. I was looking at the last thing that I was going to give a shout out to was the Hooded Menace record, but that was like, that was 2021, I think.
Yeah.
You're talking about that Tritonius bell.
Yeah. So after that, I don't know, man. Sorry. Yeah, I've been listening to Sugar.
But if I have to give
what
points, I think the points go to Jason. I'm old, so I listen to old music. I think
that's perfectly my vibe for this year too. And weirdly enough, while we are doing our lists, what we've realized is every year we end up adding more albums which are non-metal, and we've now separated out and we do like a non-metal list as well because
that's what happens end of the year. Like we do a 10 non-metal, 10 metal.
Yeah.
Normally, like I post like the top 10 record, like my top 10 records, on the Facebook thing at the end of the year, and I'm not even gonna have 10 that I listened to this year. I don't think like death metal, like everything that I'm getting into is old stuff. I'm always going back. Like I had never listened to Sugar before, and
I just listened to that today at work.
Dude, like Copper Blue is.
I was listening to that at work today. It's so fucking good.
Dude, I got into God Machine this year. I don't know if you've heard God Machine, but they're awesome. And the other one, so I talked to Lasse from Hood Menace, and this is like what people don't want to know that we Death Doom guys really talk about. It's not Death Doom. We talk about,
of course,
cats, guitars, and like Pink guitars, cats, and 90s music. Like he was getting me into like Dinosaur Jr. and the Posies. Like I fell in love with the Posies. I'd never heard them before. And last day's like, you gotta check out the Posies. Unbelievable. I'm super into that band now. And so I got on a massive Dinosaur Jr. trip, Lemonheads. So that's all the stuff that Rage Against the Machine
Husker Du
album. Yeah, Husker Du. I mean, I of course I listened to some of the stuff when I was younger, like at a time like Rage Against the Machine and stuff. But I'm always going back to that like 92 through 94. Like for me, that's the era. And so anything that comes out in that kind of time, all over it. Rediscovering stuff that I used to love, discovering stuff that I didn't know about. But yeah, 92 to 94, and I'm not talking death metal. I'm talking like alternative music, grunge music, like
but coincidentally, if you think about it, that's when death metal kind of just like went down, right? 92 to 94, so you had all these others. But just to add to your point, right? I mean, I can't remember if Animesh and I have discussed this before, but that was one of the cool things I discovered about Fenris from Dark Throne, because Dark Throne had that whole mysterious image. You had no idea and all of that, and then slowly over the last decade or so, he's been going online, he's been putting up these mixes of what he listens to and all. And what never fails to surprise me is when you listen to the music, like you think of this image you have of him, but he's listening to like a lot of these like 80s heavy metal and stuff like that. And it's so cool. Like I've also discovered quite a few bands through his, and I'm not sure if he still does the vinyl rips and all of that.
But it's more than 80s heavy metal, because I mean he's famous for that. Like he has a Plastic Man tattoo, like Plastic Man, that's techno, so I mean he has a fucking techno tattoo. Yeah, so a lot of, he might be doing the grim black metal, but at the end of the day, we're all like listening to all kinds of stuff, and that's what influences our music. If we only listen to death metal, then our shit would be so derivative, and you could just listen to any old band and it would all sound the same. So it's important.
You could listen to record 1, 2, 3, 4, it'd be the same record.
Yep. Yeah, it's important that we bring all this different stuff into it, or it would just sound like copycat, and none of us are interested in that,
Okay.
Like TOV wouldn't exist if it weren't for all those 90s bands, because that's, from a riff writing perspective, that's where I get a lot of influence from.
Alrighty, I'm going to be selfish and I'm going to ask, I'm going to just say this out loud because this is what I've been thinking while we've been talking this. We've taken a lot of your time at the moment. Let's not wait till the next album to have another chat, because I want the next chat to be about 90s music, cats, pink guitars, and just not about one another album. Let's just talk shit. Not shit.
You should get Lassie on here too. Get Lassie on here. Make it a Death Doom,
round table.
Yeah, Death Doom round table. We'll get Lassie.
When you call it a Death Doom round table, that's not the kind of chat that we'll end up having.
Yeah, and we'll just talk about cats and pink guitars and bands called the Posies, in the
exactly. Exactly.
Actually, Death Doom will be off the table. Let's make it Death Doom off table, and then we'll talk about everything else, because we're all
fantastic.
Old, we're the same ilk,
Yep. So, guys, thank you guys so much for taking so much of time totally and sharing that with us. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was worth it.
It was awesome. Thank you guys.
No, thank you guys for having us. This was great.
No, I really look forward to the Death Doom roundtable.
I'm down for that. I love bullshit.
I'm down for that. I'll talk 90s all day long. I graduated in 1990, so
Rock Fenris 1980s heavy metal. I
right here, baby.
I know it's all behind me. So
alrighty.
Let's do it.
Audience, hope that's something that you're looking forward to. Let us know if you are. As always, we're at hornsupod.com or on Twitter at hornsupod. I'm on Twitter at Asmoani.
I'm at Trend Crusher.
And this was Horns Up.
Horns up, guys.
Horns up.